learned it the hard way. Friends never last long. I'm trying to get my cash long. You niggas off point like the bag wrong.
What up, though? It's your guy, J100. Puff Puff, No Pass Reacts. Back with an early morning reaction video for y'all. This was requested by one of the viewers. Top 10 most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles, California. Yeah, this sounds like it's going to be pretty good. I can't even lie. But before we get into it, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to like the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. And make sure that notification bell is turned on so you don't miss another reaction video from me. J100, Puff Puff, No Pass Reacts. Without further ado, let's get into it. Top 10 most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles, California.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to The World According to Briggs. I thought we would do a most dangerous neighborhoods video today. I was just in Chicago, and whenever Chicago is mentioned, people act like the place is sort of like a scene from that movie Escape from New York, like it's just run down, chaotic, gangs everywhere, cars on fire, dogs and cats sleeping together, you know, just a crazy place. Thing is, it's not. 90% of Chicago is a really nice place and relatively safe, just like all major cities. They do have some parts that are crazy dangerous, and that's where they get their reputation. LA is sort of the same way. Most of it is really nice, and then you have neighborhoods that are on this list. Before we get into it, I want to dispel a myth. Compton is not nearly as bad as it used to be. Boys in the Hood was filmed in 1991. Let it go. It's also a suburb of LA, not actually in LA. Don't get me wrong, it isn't the nicest area, it's just not as bad as it once was. Today's video is about the most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles, and they have a lot of them. This is only 10 of them. We could probably do 25 that are pretty dangerous. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I will be using the proper name of these neighborhoods, so you could look it up if you want to see where it is on Google Maps or whatever. The locals might not even know that that's the actual name. Example, East LA has a handful of small neighborhoods, and most people just call it East LA. So, yeah, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up on the map. You'll see that it's in an area you probably already know. So this video isn't really geared for locals, it's geared for people that don't know about the place. Alright, so before we get into it, we're calculating this based on the number of violent crimes per every 100,000 residents, compared to the national violent crime average. Alright, let's see what places to avoid in Los Angeles. Number 10, Watts. When I was young, Watts was considered the worst place in Los Angeles. They had the Watts riots in the 60s, and they always had a serious poverty problem. Watts borders the cities of Linwood and Southgate. In the late 1800s, it was a ranching community and began to grow with the arrival of the railroads and the construction of the Watts Station. That station is still there. This is home to some of the most notorious housing projects in Los Angeles. Jordan Downs, Nickerson Gardens, and Imperial Courts. They have another one called Hacienda Village, but it's not as famous as the other ones. During the LA riots back in the early 90s, I had to patrol all three of these at one point. It destroyed a stereotype I had been raised with. Not everyone in the projects is a frickin' criminal. Most of the people are good people just trying to get by. It's just that 10% bringing everything down. And that 10% is busy here. The violent crime rate in Watts is 321% higher than the national average. And that gets them at number 10.
You may think you have some idea what you're
Here we go.
But you do not.
Commercials.
Number 9, Crenshaw. Crenshaw is a largely residential neighborhood with single-story houses, bungalows, low-rise condominiums, and apartments. There are also some commercial buildings with an industrial corridor along Jefferson Boulevard. Now, in post-World War II era, a Japanese-American community was established in Crenshaw. The Japanese community started a decline in the late 60s, and by the mid-70s, most of them were gone. An Army buddy of mine lived here. We would drive down from Fort Ord, California, which is central, coastal Monterey, California, basically. We'd come down on the weekends, and I would drop him off. This was in the early 1990s, and he would say, just drop me off at the freeway exit. I'll walk a couple blocks home. I don't need you driving around this neighborhood, which was good enough for me. He'd get out and walk to his parents a couple blocks away. He called the neighborhood the Shaw. These days, the violent crime rate here is 322% above the national average.
Dang.
That's harsh. Number 8. Park Mesa Heights. When I was young, we called this area Hyde Park. I believe most people
Bad
from
too,
Los
y'all rolling
Angeles still
up.
refer to it as Hyde Park. Who knows? This is right on the border of Inglewood, which is the new home of the NFL's Chargers and Rams at SoFi Stadium. It is scheduled to open this month, July 2020, and I'm sure it's behind schedule. It's 2020 after all. COVID-19 and everything else. They're probably just stoked a giant earthquake didn't knock the whole thing down while they were building it. Man, this freaking year. I'm sure at this point if Godzilla showed up, some of us would be like, this doesn't surprise me. Anyway, Park Mesa Heights, or Hyde Park, has never been a great place to live, at least in the last 40 or 50 years. And these days, kind of sucks. The violent crime rate here is 329% higher than the national average. There are war zones with a less violent crime rate. Number 7, Vermont Square. Most just call it Vermont. Vermont has always been a place to avoid. Over the years, I've heard they were trying to clean it up, but I haven't seen or heard about any serious cleanup efforts. Vermont Square has one of the fastest growing crime rates in LA, and I'm sure before long, they'll be number 1. Yay! This is one of those places that if you get a flat tire on the 110 freeway, which runs right along Vermont, right on the rim if you have to. Don't stop here. About 50,000 people live in this neighborhood, and almost 70% of them rent. Having a high rental percentage is never good for a neighborhood. The people aren't as committed to making the neighborhood nice. This is a perfect example. The violent crime rate in Vermont Square is 347% higher than the national average.
I want to be someone else who is popular that everyone likes. I want to be Katie Sharp.
Get that out of here.
It's rough. Number 6, West Adams. West Adams is a small neighborhood in Los Angeles that most people avoid, like an aggressive proctologist with cold hands. It's right next to the Crenshaw neighborhood that we talked about earlier, and this place can get dangerous. If one of your choices is an apartment in West Adams, I would choose living in a car in Venice with 2 other people. West Adams is bordered by Baldwin Hills to the south and the 10 freeway to the north, which, in my opinion, is one of the worst freeways in Los Angeles. I always used to get stuck on this one, and there's no escaping
every freeway
it. There's
in Los
bad
Angeles
neighborhoods
is
all
bad,
around
bro.
you, so you can't get off and try and take the side street.
So many
you may
people.
end up, losing your car or your life. Either one. So I'd always stay on that freeway, inhale all that exhaust, and just try and make it to my destination while I slowly get cooked by the Los Angeles sun. It was horrible. I hated that freeway, and I'd always avoid places like West Adams. West Adams.
For real, I'm not big on going to LA, man. I don't like being hot. I hate being hot. I'm a Scorpio. I don't like the heat. Like, I like to be warm, and that's cool, but I don't like to be hot. When I'm extra hot, I get a badass attitude, man. Like, real bad. So, me and the heat don't mix like that.
Adams' violent crime rate is 474% higher than the national average. Number 5, Limerick Park. Limerick Park was developed in the 1920s as a residential community. It was completely built to those Spanish colonial revival homes, which they still have some left, but not as many. They have these all over Los Angeles. They're still sprinkled around. They're pretty neat. Anyway, this community had tree-lined streets with a central commercial area and a park. Somewhere around the 1960s, it started to decline. In 2014, construction started on the Limerick Park station on the Los Angeles Metro Light Rail line. It is scheduled to open in 2023, and there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of fear with this train. Hope is that it'll bring development to the area and bring better jobs. And the fear is that it'll have some serious gentrification and raise prices and housing and a lot of other things and chase longtime residents away. I think they wouldn't mind chasing some of the violent criminals away, though, right now. The violent crime rate in Limerick Park is 476% higher than the national average. That's a horrible number, and we're only at the midway point of this list.
That's crazy as fuck.
Number 4, Lincoln Heights. Lincoln Heights is considered to be one of the oldest neighborhoods outside of downtown Los Angeles. This neighborhood dates back to the late 1800s. It sits on a bluff overlooking the Los Angeles River, and it's right near Dodger Stadium. It was also home to the city's most notable residents back in the day. These days, it's home to some of the city's most violent residents. Like I said, it's right by Dodger Stadium, and I would advise getting gas before the game. You don't want to be driving around this neighborhood late at night looking for a gas station. They had a TV show about this neighborhood back a couple years. I think it did 3 seasons, called Lincoln Heights. They said it was a drama. I watched one episode and I'm thinking fiction. Anyway, the violent crime rate in Lincoln Heights is 602% higher than the national average. Don't go here. Number 3, South Park. The only thing separating South Park and Vermont is the 110 freeway and over 200 percentage points when it comes to violent crime. In 1903, this was a very popular development. It stayed that way until about the 1950s, and by the 1990s, this was a place you dropped off your car when you didn't want it anymore. There are 72 places in the United States called South Park, and this one is by far the worst. It's even worse than the cartoon South Park, and in that South Park, Kenny gets killed every single episode. The violent crime rate is 610% above the national average in South Park. 610% higher. That's crazy. It's almost like they're trying to suck, you know? It's like someone's putting effort into being just a really bad and dangerous place. The violent crime rate in South Park is 610% higher than the national average. And we're still not at number 1. Number 2, Little Tokyo. Little Tokyo is right in the downtown Civic Center area of Los Angeles. This is the largest and most populous of the only 3 official Japan towns in the United States, even though we call this one Little Tokyo. All of them are in California, one in San Francisco and one in San Jose. And this one is by far the most violent. The area was where all the Japanese moved to until the Exclusion Act of 1924, which halted any further migration from Asian countries. Japanese Americans were a significant ethnic group in the vegetable trade. This is where all the vegetables were sold, like the farmer's market type thing, back in the day. And that was due to the number of Japanese American farmers across Southern California. In 1941, there was approximately 30,000 Japanese Americans living in Little Tokyo. And then in 1942, we decided we were dumb and we rounded up all the Japanese people we could find and stuck them in camps for national security. After the war, they were all released, and the neighborhood had changed. Many of them didn't move back here. They moved to different parts of LA. If you ever drive through here, you'll think there's no way that this is the second most violent neighborhood in Los Angeles. It is. The numbers don't lie. I thought it was weird too. I checked a couple different sources. It definitely is. And it's mostly assaults. People are getting beat up here all the time. The overall violent crime rate in Little Tokyo is 668% higher than the national average. That's pretty harsh.
Bro, just imagine being out there and seeing a Mortal Kombat street fight. Just happening out of nowhere, man.
Forget whatever video you're about to watch. Head over to Wix e-commerce.
They said it's assaults. It ain't murders, it's assaults.
Anywhere.
And number 1, Chinatown. In the early 1860s, thousands of Chinese men who'd been working to build the railroads landed in cities up and down the West Coast, including Los Angeles. They built their own communities and they became known as Chinatowns. The original Chinatown in Los Angeles was developed in the late 1800s, but it was demolished to make room for Union Station, which that's where the train comes in, and it was pretty much the city's ground transportation center back in the day. Now, I've been to Los Angeles' Chinatown more times than I can remember. I never really saw any crime, but it was understood that this place can get weird. I'd always make sure I was out of there by nightfall. That was just my thing. Didn't want to stick around to find out how weird it got. From the early 1910s, Chinatown began to decline. Symptoms of a corrupt Los Angeles kind of, made the place look bad with all their gambling houses, opium dens, and gang warfare, which was kind of ruining the businesses in the area. So a lot of people left, and the area slowly shrank and got smaller. Now it's what it is.
Was that in Rush Hour, bro?
Rundown
like that little section right there that was in the movie Rush Hour?
Writing on their signs. Anyway, the violent crime rate in Chinatown, Los Angeles is 679% higher than the national average. Yeah, that's why they're number 1. Apparently they're still having all kinds of problems. They've always had problems. What am I talking about? Alright, so that is our list, the most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles.
Bro, that's crazy. So, stay away from Chinatown. Stay away from Little Tokyo. Little Tokyo. Man, stay away from all them places on the list, bro. If you ain't from there, don't go there. You don't need to be there. And keep your head on the swivel. You dig? It's your boy J100, Puff Puff, No Pass Reacts, and that was another reaction video, top 10 most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles, California. Man, make sure y'all like the video, make sure y'all share the video, and don't forget, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and make sure that notification bell is turned on so you don't miss one of these reactions that I post. You know what I'm saying? So, If you already did that, I appreciate you. I'll see you on the next video. It's your guy. I'm out of here.